Would you call yourself a socialist?
No.
You've never told a lie in politics?
No.
See, somebody sent me a video actually last Friday, and it had you talking at the Socialist Youth.
Yes.
And you mentioned the word comrade about 4 times in a minute. What was that about?
It was a rally, and I would have been about 25 years old.
Comrade.
That was in 2009.
Oh, well, I can't remember which country it was in.
Have things changed since those days?
No, not particularly. No.
If you are caught in a lie or caught intentionally misleading the New Zealand public, how would you expect to be held to account?
Well, I actually believe that it is possible to exist in politics without lying.
We drum in that messaging around the dangers of COVID pretty diligently for a full 2-week period of sustained propaganda.
Our police are going to arrest these people and put them in jail, and we're going to have and I think the military must take over for a while. And we'll have military tribunals, because obviously the high up people in the courts, our Chief Justice, she's seen this for sure. And I'd like to see her deny it. She should be questioned in a military tribunal at least, because they've got to hold one for these ones who've signed up.
That is Auckland lawyer Liz M Lambert on the Liberty Channel. Liz, tell us what you have in your possession. That's something that's been leaked to you.
I have a declaration in order, and it's to Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand, with a securities number from the US Securities Commission. And the address it's been delivered to in one instance is, number 1, the terrorists, the National Provident Building, Wellington, New Zealand, and also, and that's the address of the Treasury. It was also taken to Government House, and it was also taken to the Prime Minister's office. Now, it's leaked because it's not generally known that it even happened, and it is the reason that we've got a very strange situation where suddenly the government seems to be being run by Maori and for Maori. And we are being told that we're not a country called New Zealand, but a country called Aotearoa. And so this is the story of that document. And it's got 6 pages, and the first page tells us who the people are who have taken it down to Wellington. They have a very long name. Te waka manginya o ngā tino rangatira o ngā hapu o Aotearoa nu Tereni, 1835, under the divine authority of Io Matua Te Kore, Declaration 13 December 2020. Now, I'm not going to say all of that again ever. So their name in short, and they name themselves the Maori Nation, that's Mauri. The declaration of the 13th of December refers to the last day of a hui that was held at Waitangi over 3 days, starting the 11th of December, 12th of December, and 13th of December. The reason this hui was called was because there was a woman who calls herself Lady Crown that you can find on the internet, who was invited to this hui because Maori had, for a very long time, considered that they should have at least 50% of the governorship of this country. That basically they had been calling on the Crown to move aside altogether, and this woman was to come over and be part of the hui. She couldn't get into New Zealand because of the lockdown, because when she tried to use this thing called the Sea Pass, which the listeners are probably familiar with, it refers to it's purported to confer, if you like, ambassadorial rights on people so that they can travel anywhere in New Zealand, out of New Zealand, to all sorts of places in the world, like a passport, but better than a passport, because you don't have to go through customs if you don't want to. or attempting to sell it to all sorts of people around the country, because they obviously believe that the government is going to let them take over, which is what the intent of this document is. So I'll just describe it a bit more, and then you can ask me some more about it, Grant, as we go along if you think I'm missing out something. So the first page of the document is a declaration made on behalf of those who attended, I'm going to say the Maori Nation, assembled at Waitangi, and those sovereign people present. And then there's that same thing repeated in Maori, I believe. There's a paragraph of that. And they say that they're the absolute leaders of tribes and societies of Hawaii, Tahu, and they are assembled at Waitangi to reaffirm the declaration of the authority and leadership of our country, as in, the whole of New Zealand. The original chiefs of the northern tribes of Hauraki were the ones who signed the Declaration of Independence 1835, written constitution. Yeah, written constitution. A written constitution, actually, just by the by, is a set of rules. As far as I can see, the Declaration of Independence 1835, it doesn't have any sets of rules in it. So then they say this action is followed by the gifting of the Kara Tuatahi. So the Kara Tuatahi, I think, refers to the actual flag itself. At Portsmouth, England, by King William IV to the 13 Maori, and they've spelt it here, Mauri, chiefs on the 22nd of October 1832. So then they say that Hei Whakaputanga 1835 is our written constitution, and that it was made by the chiefs of Hapu and affirmed by King William the Fourth, his parliament, and further ratified by a 21-gun salute from HMS Alligator, and is recognised as standing to this day. So they're saying that the letter that they wrote to King William saying, we'd like your protection for our fledgling nation, is the written constitution. And it was translated and written by missionaries in the Bay of Islands. And it was not a constitution, as people know a constitution. And anyway, there was only 13 chiefs who sent it off, and that only makes a little bit of the country theirs. And I think if they'd gone to anybody else, any other chiefs in the country, and said, we're claiming the whole darn shooting match, then they would have got a short shift. But anyway, so we won't argue about that. That's what they think. So then anyway, they got, on the 20th of March 1834, they got a constitutional flag, which is portrayed at the top of the page, and it's the one that a lot of people are familiar with, which it's actually a maritime flag. And then they say that it must be noted that Wakaminginya Kohuirao was founded on the 17th of August 1808 at Okorori as a single-hulled waka. That was supposedly where Kohuirao comes from. Now, Kohuirao, you might also remember, was 30 years or so ago, they had a political movement that started. And at that stage, there had been talks about Maori sovereignty for a long, long time, and people wanted to have it crystallised. And so they had a kind of a roadshow that went around a lot of the country, raised a lot of money, and they had believed that they should have 48 seats. I think it was about 48 seats in Parliament, and that as of right. So not just, standing in each electorate and having those 4 seats that at that stage were 4 seats were assigned to Maori for their exclusive right, exclusive use. But they believed that they had the right to at least governorship of half the country. So they were very well organised. You can find their video on YouTube, and a woman called Mahingarangi Forbes was the front leader at that stage. Now you'll see a young lady on television these days with the same name. That would be her daughter, is my belief. But anyway, she was on TV at that stage, and so she had a high profile. It got a lot of support amongst Maori, of course, and people were all prepared to be candidates, etc. However, at the last moment, I believe they realised they didn't have the numbers to actually make to stand in electorates. And I think that the Crown probably told them, no, it's not the right time. You're not, we're not going to let you have half, because the Crown is the one making the running in this. It's not the Crown being the executive and the Governor General together. It's not the people that we think are elected that we elect into Parliament. Well, some of them are the ones who get to be in the ministers of Her Majesty's ministers, by the way. Her Majesty referring to Queen Elizabeth II.
Right.
They made that decision, right? So I'm not privy to what actually happened in 1981, which was when they were going to put forward a political party. But it came to nothing, and the Forbeses, I'm told reliably, were paid off quite a lot of money by the Business Round Table, because Mahingarangi, or Mary Forbes, is married, or was married at that stage, to a man called Robin Forbes, who was a member of the Business Round Table. So there was skullduggery back then, and far more now. So anyway, they go on the second half of the page, and this is page 2 of 6. The following has come to the attention of the Assembly. The treaty partner, identified as the Crown of England, vacated her obligations and position under Te Tiriti o Waitangi, that's Treaty of Waitangi, with the unlawful adoption of Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand Corporation in 1986, with the assent of the New Zealand Constitution Act, right?
Can I stop you there, Liz?
So, yes, sure.
So Her Majesty the Queen in Right of New Zealand is a corporation. It's not the Queen in the flesh and blood.
That's correct.
And this was done in 1986.
Yes, according to this, and they're probably correct actually. But I think that actually the corporation might have been around quite a long time in different names.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably had different names, but anyway, they were definitely a corporation in 1986. Right. There's also a Queen and Right of Australia corporation as well, so the Australians are in the same boat. So then they say Te Tiriti or Waitangi expired at midnight on the death of Queen Victoria on the 22nd of January 1901.
So for 120 years we haven't had a treaty.
Yeah, but they seem to have known this for quite a long time, but didn't have any compunction about making claims to the Waitangi Tribunal based on the fact that they're supposed to be the treaty partner, all right? Because they knew, of course, that making claims to the Waitangi Tribunal was a sure way to get lots of money and settlement.
Okay.
So
it's starting to make sense.
They knew about, perhaps they hadn't quite got the idea about Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand Corporation, but they certainly knew in 2017 by the look of the next page, but I'll get on to that.
Before we go, so in 1901, because I've had a good look at the Treaty of Waitangi, and I can't see anywhere it says that this agreement, this treaty, is between Victoria and her heirs and Maori. It's just Victoria.
That's what they make. Yes, that's what they make the point. So there's no provision for heirs and successors.
Right.
And so, that's the end of it, right, when she died.
Okay.
And then they talk about the Pacific Islanders Protection Act and they seem to be, basically saying it's come to the attention of the Assembly, but all of this stuff has been debated and talked about for many, many years in these meetings at Waitangi and various hui throughout the country. So they were quite happy with it until it came to the crunch, and it seemed like, the Crown isn't going to play ball anymore because this woman, Lady Crown, had been stopped coming into the country for the hui. Yeah, and before that, obviously, something had happened. So anyway, then we go to the next page, and using Part 1, Section 5, titled Demise of the Crown, there was an unlawful attempt at transference of the authority of the Crown of England to a corporate entity. So they're correct there. So I won't read the whole thing, but that's the guts of that paragraph. And then they talk about a more, I guess you would call it, evidence that, something strange was going on. So then they talk about a meeting that occurred on the 4th of February 2017. Now, these meetings that they're talking about in February of each year, they'll be to do with discussions that the Crown has with Maori at Waitangi every year. They also have meetings with Ratana on the 25th of January every year as well. So there's a lot of talk that goes on between the Crown and Maori that we're not privy to. We're obviously not a treaty partner, but it looks like they've never believed they've been a treaty partner for a long time too. But anyway, they're just reassuring themselves. And so somebody called KW, and I think the W is Waiti, probably my guess, and this is just a guess, that it's of the same family of the co-leader of the Maori Party.
Why didn't he use his full name on this document?
I'm not too sure, but anyway, they give the full name of the other person called, who was Chief Justice Sean Elias. Right, and he's talking to her, and he says to her, does the New Zealand Parliament assume its sovereignty by means of a constitution an unwritten constitution? And Sean Elias says yes, and then this person says, what is your affiliation to Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand? And she says, I am the Queen's judge. And KW says, the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand. And Sean Elias says yes. Right.
Okay, can I stop you there? Being a lawyer, what does in right mean?
The Queen and Right of New Zealand. Now, I'm not a commercial lawyer, but I think it's like a company name.
So it's not. So they weren't referring to the Queen Elizabeth herself, the Queen of the UK.
No,
a flesh and blood person. They're referring. No, Elias was referring to a corporation.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So then they say. Then they make a little explanation and say, Chief Justice Sean Elias has confirmed that the counterfeit Parliament is an imposter, has no written constitution, and that she herself is appointed and commissioned by this unlawful government. Now, I'd take a little issue with them there.
Yeah.
that it's a counterfeit parliament. It isn't a counterfeit parliament. Those are real flesh and blood people elected by New Zealanders in that parliament. Yeah. What is counterfeit is the Crown.
That they swear allegiance to a person that lives in Buckingham Palace.
No, the Crown, the Queen and Right of New Zealand is a corporation.
Yes, I know, but the oath is to a flesh and blood person and her heirs. Why do they swear an oath in Parliament?
Because they're misled.
Right.
And they're being led by the Crown for a long time, a very long time.
Do you think that's why parliamentarians go in and they swear that oath, knowing that it's baloney, and they just swear it, and then just do things that are unconstitutional? Well,
to get in there, they have to swear something. Although they did a bit of, they did some affirming, and I think somebody swore on a Quran this time, and there was all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah.
But the fact is that the Queen and Right of New Zealand
is a corporation.
is a corporation, and the person who works for that corporation, called the Governor General, is the one that opens and closes Parliament and signs off all our laws. So nothing could get done without the Crown say so. But now, of course, they found out, the Crown's partner, so-called, that
it's a company.
That it's a company, and now they're jumping up and down saying, so you're nothing. We're the only real Crown, so we should come in and take over.
Well, so wouldn't the company just say, well, we've got the army and we've got the police. Sorry, we'll just arrest you. We'll just take it by force. If you won't, why don't they do that? So just try. Why doesn't this corporation just say, which is made up of the people that are running this corporation, the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice, and the Governor General? Why don't they just say, well, too bad. Maybe it is a counterfeit parliament. Maybe it is an imposter, but hey, we're here and there's nothing you can do about it. Why don't they just do that?
Well, that's very interesting, because when we get to the last page, or the two last pages, we'll find out why they didn't, or we can perhaps surmise why they didn't.
Okay.
Because
I'll let you get back to it. Sorry about that.
Story. It's okay. No, that's good. They come into the story a little bit later. So then we've got the bottom half of page 3 of 6, then talks about Friday, the 11th of December 2020. Now, what was happening then? Remember, I talked about this 3-day hui that started on the 11th of December, and they were expecting this woman, Lady Crown, to come over. So then they must have had a phone call. Then there was probably another phone call, or maybe this person called Alistair Waite that lives in Wellington, and he went round and saw Gregory Bourne. That's Beaughen.
That's the Governor General's secretary?
That's the Consulate General Secretary for the Governor General, apparently.
Okay.
But anyway, I just thought he was the official secretary to the Governor General. And he is the person that, you have to get through to get to the Governor General.
Okay.
So on that date, Gregory Bourne, who's the Governor General Secretary, said to Alistair Waite, according to this, and this is Gregory, at this moment, when there are COVID restrictions, there are additional points about whether a traveller has a place assigned to them in one of these managed isolation quarantine facilities. Now, what he's obviously saying to this person is, who said, why can't Lady Crown come in? She's got a sea pass. And then, the heckles will be raised by people who believe in that they're not travellers, that there's something else, because he's called her a traveller, and that this traveller has to have a place assigned to them, just like ordinary people, just like you and me.
Okay,
Right,
that was red rag to a bull.
It was a red rag to a bull because people had expected with the sea pass that they get special treatment.
They thought they were royalty.
Yeah, they did. Yep. So then there must have been an answer back, and then we don't get that, but Gregory Bourne then says, Crown of England was what was here at the time of the colony in 1840, and there hasn't been a Crown of England for the last generation. So
how long's a generation?
Yeah, well, I don't know, because at first they're saying that it was after the Queen died. Victoria.
That's about 2 generations, isn't it? Since then, since she died.
A good 2 generations.
At least 2.
And then, so they can't seem to quite make up their mind about when they weren't a treaty partner anymore. And then Alistair says, well, you're saying that the partner, the 50-50 partner, that the English crown is no longer here? Have they vacated? And Gregory says, that's true. We no longer have our sovereignty held by the Queen of the United Kingdom. It is held by the Queen of New Zealand. And then Alistair says, who is the Queen of New Zealand?
That would be my question.
Right. And then Gregory says, Elizabeth II, Queen of New Zealand.
And then Alistair.
Well, it's a mystery, that one. And then Alistair says, okay, perhaps they're looking for her, right? Alistair says, okay, is she the defender of the faith? And it's like a Cinderella story, isn't it? Find out who the glass slipper fits. Then Gregory says, that doesn't apply in New Zealand as we do not have an established religion. So then they give us chapter and verse about the Queen in the UK is a defender of the faith. And if the Queen and right of New Zealand is not the defender of the faith, she is also not the Queen.
So she's a different entity.
Yeah. So they've sort of, got it right that the corporation isn't the Queen of the UK, and they've established that this Queen in New Zealand, called Elizabeth II, is not the defender of the faith, so she's not the Queen either. So then they really established that there is definitely no royalty in New Zealand, and they give us the coronation oath, and then Gregory says there must have been another question about, well, what are you then if you're the Governor General Secretary and she's the Queen's lady? Well, what are you? And Gregory says, well, I'm a public servant, so it's my duty to uphold the legislation of New Zealand. There's probably a question about, well, how is it that you won't let Lady Crown in? And he's just saying, well, everybody has to follow the law that they have to go into a quarantine facility. Right. And then Alistair asks, do you swear an oath? And Gregory says, no, I haven't sworn an oath, no. Oh, so then we've got the Imperial Laws Application Act 1988, Section 5, Application of the Common Law of England. Now, I don't know why they've put that in there, but it's actually one of the most important things that we have to remember. If people are feeling at this stage, what's going on? Where are we going to be going from here? Is law and order going to break down? The answer is no, because we still have the common law
of England.
Because we have accepted it and we are quite happy to use it, and that is what a lot of the law, everything that's not maritime law is common law, right?
Right. So we don't use maritime law; we use common law.
Now, common law keeps our society functioning and keeps law and order in the country.
So what about all the laws that have been made since 1901 in Parliament that might be conflict with the British Constitution?
The British don't have a constitution either. They don't have one either.
I thought we had a constitution.
No, they're another unwritten one. They don't have one either.
Okay, well then conflicts with common law. What about all those laws? So that all those laws that have been made in Parliament?
It's a great opportunity for us to go through everything and say, okay, we don't need that, we don't need that, we don't need that. We don't need to have 4 extra seats for Maori, or how many they've got now, 7. We can do away with all of that because they're not a treaty partner. It brings everybody back to
the common law of England.
Yeah, and back to common law. And common law is something that's been developed. It doesn't rely on any particular, 1688 or anything like that. They're just reminders of that. We've always gone under Judeo-Christian law, actually, which is the 10 Commandments. Right?
Yeah.
So we've still got all of that. It's nothing to worry about. In fact, it's a great opportunity because we can sort out all of the rubbish that's been going on. We have to get rid of the Waitangi Tribunal. We have to get rid of, we have to look at the settlements again, see the apology money.
Right.
That's a possibility that
do we get a refund?
A lot of that was paid out to do with, you didn't act in good faith and you were the treaty partner. Well, at the time of the settlements since 1975, there's a big question. It looks like they weren't the treaty partner then, and a lot of the principles that have been developed by the courts reliant on that supposed fact now have to be re-examined.
Right, of course they do.
So we've got a real cleaning of house to come up, okay? So it's good news. So then they talk about...
The Tino Rangatira, is that this group? No.
There are many groups that make up this group that have come under this rubric, if you like.
Right, so the Maori people that put this document together, let me get this right, they want to continue under the common law of England. They want it to be the laws of New Zealand shall continue to be part of the laws of New Zealand. So they want British common law to continue. Common law.
Well, it's a little bit it's a little bit unclear because they quote that and then they say then this act does not speak about the laws of New Terini in rem. It mentions the laws of New Zealand in personam as a phrase in a statute cannot call what is non-existent into being. You see, quite frankly, even as a lawyer, I'm thinking, what the hang? Sometimes people grab pieces of quotes.
Frankenstein's daughter. This document looks like Frankenstein's daughter.
Some of it is really, really, really strange.
Oh, hang on, it was the bride, wasn't it? The bride of Frankenstein. Just all put together.
Like but
it's a real shambles.
Some of it is just babble. It really is. But, I talk about Section 5 of the Imperial Laws Application Act because it suits our situation, and I think it's one thing that we can hold on to and say, okay, let's build on the common law from here, and we have to restart, and we can make a really good start because I think even though these people who put this together are pretty, some of the people who we must have had some really good ideas and really wanted what was good for New Zealand, as we'll find out on the next page. So, but they were hijacked. So then they say, obviously as a result of all of this, we do not recognise the authority of the imposter corporate identity known as Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand as our 1840 treaty partner, nor the recipient of the 1835 Declaration of Independence. Now, what that does is they sit on the limb of a tree and they cut it off at the where it's hanging on.
I know, that's what they've done.
At that point.
They've got the chainsaw under their legs.
Yes, I'm afraid so. So then they say the attached order to the Governor-General, the Chief Justice and the Prime Minister of Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand provides instructions pertaining to vaccinations, poisons and other issues. And this is what I mean. There's some good stuff in here. Okay. The order is addressed to Helen Winkleman, Chief Justice,
right,
and Her Majesty Queen and Right of New Zealand, and the securities number. Now that's all in capital letters, so they're recognising the corporate nature of it.
Right, not the Queen of England, not Elizabeth, the 96-year-old Queen. No, this is a corporation with its office in Washington DC.
Yeah, so this is the order to them. Okay, the Queen just gets ignored because she's not their treaty partner anyway.
Okay.
And then Patsy Reddy, the Governor-General, and the same thing, and Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister.
So Patsy Reddy is the Governor-General to a corporation?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's correct. And then it's from Maori Nation. And then they say, due to the failure of the Office of the Minister of Justice, Andrew Little, to provide proof of an international maritime contract between ourselves and his foreign offshore private company masquerading as the Government of New Zealand, confirms that all statutes, maritime admiralty, jurisdiction and acts of Parliament are unlawful. So, they've kind of got rid of it all in one stroke.
So all of it, so the gun licensing and all that, that all goes back to 1688, the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, well, no.
Well, it does. No. It says that every British person in 1688 Bill of Rights has the right to bear arms, unless you're a Roman Catholic. True.
Yeah, that's true, but that's to do with that's a codification of common law and the right of self-defence. That's where that comes from. Just because you put it into, some
the Bill of Rights,
you attach it to a certain date, etc. If you look at the sources of law, you'll find it's common law. Okay, which is based on it's what's called jurisprudence. Why has a law come into being? Because it's based on a human need. Right. Okay.
So the three people signed this order. So you got your Chief Justice, Winkleman, Reddy, Governor-General of a corporation, not Queen, and Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of a corporation, not the Queen.
Yep.
Wow, just a name that says the Queen. And that's to full New Zealanders. That we have a constitution. Well, it fools us that we have a constitutional monarchy when in actual fact we don't.
No,
we've got three women here running New Zealand, and they are chiefs of a company, a corporation.
Yeah, that's right. And that doesn't look like they're our public servants either.
No.
Because they're not servants to anybody. They're certainly not servants to the Queen, and they're not servants to the rest of us.
Right. And then you've got this bit about Andrew Little.
We pay their wages, yes. So we're kind of buying the government off them by the sound of it, isn't it? Anyway, now this is an interesting thing due to the failure of the Office of the Minister of Justice. They obviously have the idea that if there had been a contract between us, a maritime contract, that would have been okay. I'm not too sure.
What would have been okay?
Well, they say due to the failure of the Office of the Minister of Justice, Andrew Little, to provide proof of an international maritime contract between ourselves, and so do they mean themselves and the foreign offshore private company? It's hard to say.
And it sounds like they've given him an opportunity to prove it, and he hasn't been able to.
Yeah, that sounds like there has been discussions with Andrew Little. And what I say about this document is the Crown, which Andrew Little is part of as part of the executive, has obviously been talking to Maori for a very long time about all of this. Okay, so then they go on to make these orders that the acts of Parliament are unlawful. So then they say suspend all authority of the imposter government under the leadership of Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, acting on behalf of her, and there's the corporation again, effective immediately. Cease and desist all activities pertaining to mandatory vaccinations. Cease and desist all activities pertaining to coerced vaccinations. Cease and desist the use of all 1080 and brodiophactorum or something, poison usage, I don't know what that is. Any pandemic, 5, any pandemic or epidemic that is proven to exist is to be managed under inherent rights, customs, usages and practices by whānau and hapu.
Okay.
Don't know what that's going to do, but anyway. Rescind New Zealand's participation in United Nations agendas 21, 20.
I'm liking these Marys. I'm liking these Marys after number 6.
This is good. Yeah, this is good stuff. Refuse consent to 5G and 6G or other technology rollouts and infrastructure without verified independent confirmation of health and safety.
Okay.
8. Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand Corporation Royal Assent Stamp is rescinded and revoked in its entirety. They are without valid contract and were never granted the right to govern. The power of royal assent is with the Maori nation collective from this day forward.
So they run New Zealand.
So, yep, that's the order, right?
And it says suspend all authority of the imposter government under the leadership of Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. So there's 8 clauses in this contract.
Well, it's not a contract, it's an order.
Okay. So the Maori nation are ordering.
The other side doesn't get to have a say in it. They're being told you're imposters.
Oh, right.
I mean, you would do the same, wouldn't you? I mean, if you came home and somebody was in your house,
I'd say get out.
Saying they were you'd say get out and don't come back, and you'd call the police probably. But these people didn't call the police. They thought, hang on, we can maybe just walk in and they'll walk out. So anyway, the next page is very interesting because it's the signing page.
So they actually agreed. They signed this order. The government and the Justice and the Governor General's office signed this?
Well, they witnessed they witnessed it. The signers of it are actually 3 people. One called Alfred James Mitchell.
Hang on, where's that person?
He is. You've got him. Mm-hmm. Okay, so first I'll give the listeners a little flavour of it. So we assert the remedy of the presumed Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand, any and all derivatives, appellations and the like, as well as agents, agencies, ministers, police commissioner, constables, judges, justice of the peace, regal and vice-regal, and all under-secretaries or civilians, and any person commissioned by the same, that the demise of the Queen of England is now dead. We assert and direct that the presumed actors of Her Majesty the Queen and Right of New Zealand Company transfer all functions, duties, powers, authorities, rights, privileges and dignitaries belonging to the Crown of England and the Crown of the Maori Nation, Mauri, to the only successor standing, the Crown of the Maori Nation, hereby evident with our autograph and thumbprint. So, basically...
So who's the Crown? These 3 people? Alfred?
Well, yeah. It says that...
Hene Whare, Harawira.
Harawira. Hene Whare, Harawira. And that is Harawira's sister from what I can make out.
Right.
Yep.
These are the Crown.
So, yeah, and
new bosses.
these are crown of the Maori nation. They're going to get all of the support of these people.
Hang on, who's this third person on there, Liz? That's a name that.
That person. That's Michael Alexander Stace.
Good grief!
Right? Yeah, and he's called, and he's not Maori. He's an American. He's called, and he's got lots of different names, AKA names, known to the police, let's say, and the international police. Okay, so but he's very kindly left his thumbprint all over it, so they're going to be very interested.
Right.
And he's supposed to be the Maori Crown Postmaster. Now, in the document, on the signing page, they have a very strange, well, they say autograph instead of signature for a start.
Okay.
And they have this sort of language that they write in called Postmaster General language. Now, some it's rather esoteric, but it's not plain English. But if you read English, you can pretty much make out what they're talking about. So Alfred James Mitchell in Ens Legis Ariki Nui Hero Ika for Tihapu o Whakamingia Wā o Maniapoto representative is the Attorney General, Minister for Security and Defence, Minister for Justice. So that's basically, you've got the courts, you've got the Army, Navy and Air Force, and one would imagine the Treasury.
So they all come under Alfie.
They all come under
Alfie Mitchell runs that part of New Zealand.
Yeah, that's right. The Confederation of Chiefs of the United Tribes of Aotearoa.
Yep.
And the witness is one, and it's all sort of got brackets around it, and, it doesn't sort of read very tenderly on the eyes, but of the sovereign, SUV, ERAN, dash Maori, dash Crown, dash Postmaster, dash autograph, live life, claim, slash
string of numbers.
And a string of numbers. So, and then copyright claim, copy, all rights reserved, etc. So that
and they've got their own seal over on the left next to the thumbprints. They've got a seal.
Seals. And then Hene Whare only gets to be the Waitangi marae representative of Ngāti Rahiri, Ngāti Kaua Hapu. So basically all of the power goes to the Postmaster General or the Postmaster, Michael Stace, and this other guy, Alfred James Mitchell.
And we're called Aotearoa, NZ in brackets.
Yeah, Aotearoa, NZ in brackets. So that's all right. And you get to that page, and it could be like, well, yeah, anybody, any clown.
I've noticed that each one of those stamps, which is a seal, has like the seal of the Attorney General seal, then there's the Minister for Security and Defence seal, and then there's the Minister for Justice seal. So it looks like Stace is the Minister for Justice for the Confederation of Chiefs of the United Tribes of New Zealand, of Aotearoa, NZ.
Right. Yeah.
So they want to take us back under this 1835 one, but with a bit of a twist to it.
Well, I don't know, because they sort of have cut the 1835 out of it, I suppose. Although if they're saying they've got a constitution, who knows what that is. Possibly it's that thing that's come out that's called Hei Puapua.
The seal has got the United Tribes flag, and it says established 1835, Aotearoa NZ on each of those seals.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, well, I guess that's right. That's where we're supposed to be under some sort of maritime flag.
Only we use the English common law.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's hard to say, with a bit of a native twist by the look of things.
Okay.
So Then we get to the page that I think is the most interesting of the whole lot, because on one side we've got Michael Stace signs again, and these are all on the 22nd of the 12th, so it's all done on one day. Then we've got Michelle Jeanette Hood, we've got Paula Ludwicki, we've got someone called I can't quite make out that name. Then we've got Tiahine Wharekura Kingi, who is she was sidekick to Billy Tikahika in the what you call it party, NZPP party.
Yeah.
And of course Michael Stace was his sidekick as well. Michael Stace, if they had got elected, they've got party vote, then Michael Stace and known to the police, it was with many other names, and people like Billy TK and I don't think Tiahine was a candidate, but they'd be running the show, you know, jumping up and down like the Maori party is at the moment.
Right.
So, and we've got somebody called Kumuroa, because they've got, you can't quite read it because they've got their thumbprints over the top. I think so Vicky Odell is the other person. And then we've got the most important, in my view, is how the government has reacted to this. So we've got Anthea Williams, Treasury Solicitor, right? Now, she's a real person.
And she's signed?
Yes, she is signed.
That's her signature.
She's signed on the state.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got Gregory Bourne, which was the guy who's the Governor General's private secretary, and he signed and full. And then we've got an initial for the Prime Minister's office of JC. Now, at first glance, it's like, who's JC? But if you know that Jacinda Ardern's other name, or name that she seems to be using in this case, is Krisky, C-R-I-S-C-I is how you spell it.
C-R-I-S-C-I. Krisky, what does that mean?
That's a family name that could be claimed by her father and uncle.
Okay.
Because their father was not Jacinda's grandfather. I don't know what his first name was, George, I think, or something like that. Ardern. There was the twins. They are were not his children, but they've been brought up as Ardern and they've taken that name. But Krisky is also associated with a New York crime family. So that bears a lot of further investigation. So that's the whole document that actually hands over our country
to a group of Maoris.
Yeah, to the
three Maoris, really, isn't it? And an American ex-con.
Yeah.
Ex-con, or would you say a convicted criminal?
Yeah, he'd be an ex-con because he's, you know, as far as I know, he's served his time. I don't think he's on the run. But, you know, people, because, you know, of course our immigration department must know that what his situation was when he came in here in 2004 was what I heard. You know, it bears looking at. At that time, Leanne Dalziel was the immigration minister. It was another Labor government. But yeah, those other people who sign on the final page, basically, from what I can make out, they're either Maori sovereignty or Labor Party hacks.
Okay.
But they've all got very very high positions. I've done some research, but I think that this discussion today is shocking enough for people. They need they need to digest this, and then we can do more interviews and find out who these people are that would do such a heinous crime. I believe. I think
a couple of questions, Liz. A couple of questions. Why do you think Jacinda Ardern, if this is her signature, why did she sign that this looks like JC PMO, which is by Prime Minister's office?
Yeah. I think that.
You sure it's her? Because it might just be someone in the Prime Minister's office with the JC.
No, well, I'm pretty sure it's her, but because of a lot of reasons that I can't, say just now.
Okay.
But but anyway, she will no doubt deny it completely when it's put to her.
So what are they going to say when they see this document? Like how many people do you think have got this document in their possession besides us?
Probably a good. Well, they've got quite a few copies themselves, but we, on the outside of the circle, probably I would say maybe 20 people.
Wow. So what are we now? What are you going to do with it? That's my next question. This document.
Well, I want to send the document and the recording to the police.
Okay. And I think a
crime of treason has been committed. Yes, I have actually.
Right.
Yeah, I have. There's some very fine officers who are loyal to the people of this country, in the police force and in the army, of course, as well, because of course the army is a defence force for this country.
Yes.
It's not a defender of a corporation of New Zealand, and it's certainly not a defender of traitors.
But then every police officer and every person in the army signs a.
Well, I don't think they wouldn't have known that they were swearing an oath of allegiance to a company.
No
way.
So they've been hoodwinked. We've all been hoodwinked.
Yeah,
if this is true, yeah. You're pretty confident this is a a real bona fide, not just a hoax, just to get the truth movement. I've talked to quite a few people who did this, who are associated with this. I see.
And I've also seen photographs, and I do know that there is video taken by Michael Stace, because I've talked to somebody who was there, who said he was carrying the camcorder, etc. Well, they called it a camcorder, I suppose. That's an old-fashioned name for what he was carrying.
Yeah.
But he's taken. He is a man who will make sure that he's got plenty of blackmail. If anything happens, there'll be a lot of people that he'll be able to actually blackmail. But the best form of preventing any of that is to bring it out in the open. Once it's what's called an open secret, it's not a secret.
Do you think Billy Tekaheka knows about this document?
Yes, he does.
He does? How long has he known about this document?
I don't know. I would have. I think, you see, going back to that good stuff in it, you've got to think, well, what if it is real? Why hasn't all of this vaccination stuff stopped?
Exactly. Yeah, that's another.
Right.
That did cross my mind.
Billy Tekaheka was at that 3-day hui, because I've spoken to people. He was definitely there.
Was he privy to this document before it was delivered on the 22nd December?
Oh yeah, wow. He would have seen it.
How come he hasn't said anything about it to the rest of us?
Because I believe NZPP was the controlled opposition.
Oh, really?
Not most of the people who were supporters, of course. A few of the people right at the very top, people like Stace, if you do a bit of looking around, you'll hear, he's a member of the CIA, and he could be anything, quite frankly, Grant. Who knows? He could be a double agent, he could be a triple agent.
One of his names sounds a bit Muslim.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Well, it sounds, what is it, Mubarak or something name like that?
Yeah.
I think Palestinian.
Could be, but I think he's his kind of cultural background is like Californian gang related, Mexican, Guatemalan or something like that. There is something I can't remember what it is now. Yeah. But he's probably born in California. But it looks like the Prime Minister's got links through to New York gangsters. Well, there's plenty of gangsters around Las Vegas, etc. too.
Are we going to get into trouble for saying that?
And in California, so there's gangs all across the states. Mafia. I'm talking about.
So once this is out, once we put this podcast out and we share it with other truth channels, what do you think? What do you think these people are going to do? I mean, I'm not the Maori.
Well, I've been, we know who you are and we know where you live. I've had plenty of that, but quite frankly, I believe I'm under God's protection, and they're not going to get anywhere near me without something happening to them. So, I feel okay. I don't feel any about that. I would say, watch this space, because then it's really up to the New Zealand police to arrest them.
You think they'll just say we're crackpots?
Well, I think, though, it explains a lot, doesn't it?
It does, especially with all this, the hospital thing, the health board, and all the stuff that the government's doing. It made no sense. Now it's starting to.
Yeah.
After talking to you and seeing this document.
Yeah, and all the things about that the people, a lot of the people at the Hui obviously wanted to happen. Nothing has happened, and
so what happened there? What went wrong? So it's because we're still going down that track with the vaccinations and the probably the 10 nations.
Well, traitors are going to try and will always cheat, right? So I believe that in actual fact there was never that the whole thing and the whole so-called, because they never had a policy document, NZPP, but they had these vague things that well, they're not vague because they're pretty solid. This is what we don't want to happen. This is what don't want to happen. Stop all of this. But when you think of it, rather than the policy document, which should really say, well, we would pass this act and would repeal that one, and we would have a budget and blah, 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 and this is how much we'd spend, or we'd increase taxes or decrease them or whatever. They just had it basically the same thing that's in this document is what they were saying they wanted. And also they were always talking about, Billy was always talking about our people. Now, obviously, and people pulled him up about it. And
they did, yeah, including me.
Are you Maori sovereignty? No, he'd say. But when you look at this document, you can see basically it's NZPP wish list. And if you've got a wish list that you think is Father Christmas is going to bring down the chimney on the 25th of December, no danger whatsoever, or on the 22nd, as this would be, 22nd of December, then you don't need any of the details. You just get the ministries that you're taking over. You just tell them, okay, now produce something like Hei Puapua, which they had in the. Actually, I think from memory, I found out that Hei Puapua was. A lot of it was written by Helen Clark's secretary, a woman called Heather Simpson, right? Yeah. So, and of course, Jacinda is Helen Clark's protege. Helen Clark was was in the UN for 8 years in the Sustainability Secretariat, putting together the agendas. So people only have to go and look at the UN website and look at the Sustainability Secretariat, and they will see that there was no way in the world that Jacinda was ever going to go anyway along the path of anything but the UN agenda. So if these people bring an order to Jacinda Ardern and she signs it, or somebody in her office does, but it's her, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
There must be skullduggery. So I believe that that was put in there purely to fool the people at the hui.
The order of what they wanted.
That was really going to happen. That was what was really going to happen.
Right. Okay. But why did they do that? Because
they wouldn't. Most people at the hui have wanted. They wanted power. That's true. They wanted power, but they wanted it because they are like other New Zealanders. They want a decent society, but they just thought they've been brainwashed into this idea that we can only get it if we become like we adopt Maori culture. But that's a ridiculous idea.
I'll say.
Because all of the stuff that they see as wrong would certainly not be fixed by, but going back to what happened in 1835. If you're going to go back to 1835 and say we were the chiefs and this is structure they have in mind, is that basically there are no elections because they're hereditary.
It's a kingdom.
Yeah, it's a kingdom.
How do we stop this? Who's going to stop it?
We are going to stop it.
How?
Our police are going to arrest these people and put them in jail, and we're going to have and I think the military must take over for a while. And we'll have military tribunals because obviously the high up people in the courts, our Chief Justice, she's seen this for sure. And I'd like to see her deny it. She should be questioned in a military tribunal at least, because they've got to hold one for these ones who've signed up. Well,
I didn't hear this on the news.
No. You won't hear it on the news, not the 9 o'clock news.
So are you absolutely convinced that the signatures on this, like Gregory Bourne, that's really his signature? And
absolutely.
That he is...
I've been talking to, now this guy Mitchell, right, is complaining that we're not getting the what was all promised about the 1080, etc. He lives down in Nelson somewhere, so, where they're pretty hot on the 1080 question.
Yeah.
And he's complaining on Facebook. They have all of these conversations. I've got threads, I've recorded tons of threads of them, talking about how they've been betrayed, how they've been betrayed by iwi leaders or they can't quite decide who they've been betrayed by. Kupapa, is it Kupapa? The name for it, a traitor.
Okay.
I always get mixed up with Kupapa is, I think, a plan, and the other one is a traitor. But anyway, people who've sided with the Crown in the past were called, especially at the time of the rebellions. They fought in the Crown's militia. They fought on the side of the Crown. They were always, scorned and by the Maori radicals at that time, and the people who have continued to keep up those traditions and those memories and those fights, and now completely, the history has been completely rewritten.
Yeah.
And the Crown has encouraged them right from day one, Grant, right from day one. This was always the plan.
So if this is true, though, it's not the Crown, it's just the name of a corporation that's been encouraging.
No, but I mean, at the time of Queen Victoria and the time of, probably at the time of William IV, they have prophecies, and they have, and they have stuff out of the Old Testament and everything, and they have, all of their witchy poos. Decided that Maori were the chosen people,
Really?
and that New Zealand had to be taken over by them and run, by the chiefs who were supposed to be descended from, from gods and everything, and gods on earth. They're complete pagans. They're complete blasphemers.
Wow. Okay, so getting back to this document.
Yes.
Most of the pages, the front page included, has the United Tribes flag.
Yes, and a seal.
And a seal. But the one that's got the Justice and Jacinda Ardern's office and the Governor General's office, that doesn't have, it just looks like a piece of paper without...
Yeah, but if you look at...
This is 6 of 6, so this is another piece of paper.
See the way that it's put together, it would have been, that back page would have sat with its face outwards, and you see how the way it's been...
It's been folded over.
What happens is you put a hole through, and you... and you thread a ribbon through, and you put a gold seal over it. That's gold, actually, and when you see it in colour.
Okay, so that's what that goes right through.
Yeah. So that shows you that they are the entire document. That is definitely part of the document.
Right, with you. Yeah. Okay, so so what's the next step now that you're speaking about this?
Right. Well, as I say, I've had the document since December, and I've tried to speak to these people and say to them,
which people? The people on our side?
Yeah, the people. Yeah, and say, listen, this is treason. Stop, confess, basically. But they won't. And they must be very happy now, because they're getting that, basically they're blackmailing the government.
They are. They're holding them to ransom because the government are an imposter government, according to this document.
Yeah, well, of course, obviously the people who signed off, we don't know how many actually know that this has actually happened. But if you're not in the executive, you're not privy to what's going on, really, and they just get the ministries just take their orders from their ministers.
Why would the Anthea Williams, Jacinda Ardern, or someone in her office, Gregory Ball, the Governor General's office, why would they sign this? Like, why do they put their name and thumbprints down?
Yeah, well, Jacinda is going to the UN. That's her promised cincture, I should think. And Gregory, well, he's out of a job anyway, because Maori were determined that this, they weren't going to keep quiet about it. So I would think money. That woman, Anthea Williams, I've done quite a lot of research into her. Treasury solicitor. She's a globalist through and through. She used to work for. She went to university in Victoria in the first instance, and then
Victoria and Wellington, or Victoria, Australia.
Yeah, Victoria Wellington.
Yeah,
and she's written a number of papers, and she went to she got a. I think she's a lawyer, obviously, but it's more to do with public policy law.
Yeah,
and she was in Toronto back in, I think it must have been about 2003, and wrote a paper, because she was at the University of Toronto at some stage, but she wrote a paper about the SARS scare, or it wasn't really an epidemic, but they thought it might be. And they did some sort of dry run in Toronto and closed, because they have a lot of people coming in from China there, and closed the airport and closed, for a week or so. And she wrote a paper with another woman about how they were looking at how much it cost, basically. They were looking at, the cost-benefit analysis, really, by the look of things. You can read the paper online. It's called it's not called A Tale of Two Cities. It's called A Tale of Toronto, I think. A Tale of Toronto.
Okay, we'll look that up.
Yeah, I think it's called that. But anyway, if you look under Anthea Williams and
okay. I've heard that name
all of that
quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. But another interesting thing is she's also a member of, and I guess she's probably spent a summer over in a college, one of the colleges at Oxford University in the UK, called the Said Business. I can't remember its full name. You can find that too probably on her LinkedIn page.
Said sounds Muslim.
Syed, yeah. And this guy, he's Muslim, and he was implicated, or, well, I don't know if he ever was sent to jail. It was probably quite legal. He's an arms dealer, and he's the big patron of this school or college or whatever you want to call it, and he's an arms dealer, and he was in the arms for oil deal that went on. Is it Iran? Which country was it that they, it was weapons? They were looking for weapons of mass destruction.
In Iraq.
Iraq, yeah. So he was implicated in that oil. Well, as I say, probably not implicated. It's probably quite open because they put it on Wikipedia, and nobody takes it away. But and that was at the time, of course, that Jacinda was playing policy advice to Blair. So it's they all know each other. It's nasty stuff. So where was I going with this? Who were the people, and why would they have signed it? Because of money and power and position. They don't care. They thought that it was all going to be all right because they never thought that this would be leaked. And they were thinking we were just going to take, it's better for us if we give up being Pākehā and become Maori, and everything will be hunky-dory.
So if you didn't send this off to the police or the military or whoever, would Anthea Williams and Jacinda Ardern and Gregory Bourne, would they all just carry on?
Yeah, I believe they would. I mean, the election was a farce. We should probably do another program about why it's actually was an illegal election in the first place.
It needs to be audited, not just a recount.
Well,
but
not
audited.
only but I mean, it was wrong from the get go because of the Governor General, of course, issued the writ. You can't even get the process started without the Governor General, issuing the writ. And I had proof that she actually knew that her position was known, because I wrote to her on the 12th.
Okay,
and she issued the writ on the 13th. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Working out her position.
We're speaking with Liz M Lambert, an Auckland lawyer, and Liz is just telling us about this document that's been signed by the members of the Judiciary, the Ardern Office, and the Governor General's Office with the Maori Nation, Mauri, and it looks as though New Zealand is not. Doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to this group of Maori, according to this document. And is it too late, Liz?
No, definitely not. We've only just begun.
So, if this document is like, if they're holding the government to ransom, how are they holding the government or crown or corporation or whatever it is we have now? How are they holding them to ransom? Just because of this document?
Well, because money, right? They've got control of the treasury, obviously. The 150 million that was paid off to Ngāpuhi.
Yeah, that all makes sense now, doesn't it?
Have got their finger in this pie really deep. Yeah.
Okay.
They put in their thumb and they pulled out the plum of 150 million.
So you say the police need to be involved, and so that really, well, they enforce their authority at the point of a gun, don't they? At the end of the day.
If they don't come peacefully, I guess they will.
That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, it's at the point of a gun.
Yeah.
So that's the only way we're going to stop these people, is for our police to arrest them all.
Yeah, because I don't think that, for example, the security people, they have their own security people, and we can't be having citizens arrest even though we'd like to, because, you'd get involved in pushing and shoving and you might end up with an assault charge, and nobody wants to do that.
No,
but she's not going to come. She's not going to come except if the police go and get her, or the three of them, whoever it is. Yeah.
Okay. And what about the Maori Nation people that signed us with? Do they need to be arrested as well, or is it just on our side?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. I think there's probably charges for extortion.
Yeah.
I think Ngāpuhi are probably the people in Ngāpuhi who can be, looked at pretty closely. There should be the police should look at extortion. There are many people. It's addressed to Helen Winkleman as well. It's addressed to Patsy Reddy. Is she going to deny that she knew anything about it? Is Reddy going to deny anything? I wonder about that. Certainly need to be brought in for questioning.
Okay.
Andrew Little needs to be brought into questioning.
Definitely, because it sounds like he's privy to this.
Yeah, it does. It does. And of course, these people, Alistair Waite, needs to be brought in and questioned. Anybody who's mentioned on here, these other 10 people who've sorry, not 10 people, 8 of them or something. Dell and Hood, and of course Stace and Ludwicki, and this other person. But you get one of them, and no honour among thieves. Arrest one, and I think we'll see, the whole pack of cards, the whole castle falling. What's that? Game of Thrones, isn't it?
You're listening to
Game of Thrones.
You're listening to Liberty NZ. I'm Grant Edwards, and we're speaking with Auckland lawyer Liz M Lambert. Liz is available on Facebook. You can message her if you've got questions about about your employer wanting you to have a vaccine. You're working on that, aren't you, Liz?
Yeah, I'm working on lots of things.
You are. And okay, so we will watch this with interest. We will hear. And so you're sending this to the police. When do you think you'll send this document off to the police?
Well, I'd like to send it with a recording, obviously.
Okay.
Because I think that explains it really well. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, probably Monday now. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. I think it's brave of you. And
thank you.
Yeah. So, what can you say? I don't know what to say about this. I'm just shocked, eh?
Yeah, it is shocking. It is shocking. But I kind of expected every day for, someone to wake up and, and something something to happen. So suddenly, it would become obvious that there was something strange going on, that some of these people at the Hui would have started to rattle their leaders' cages or something, and there would have been a crack in the ranks. But I think the money is soothed. I think that 150 million went a long way. And then there's all these promises of more and more and more money,
Oh, you mean to the media?
Yeah, and there was a handover to the media. The mainstream media won't touch it with a barge pole.
Mm. But, what about opposition? What about the National Party?
They'll want it now. They'll want it now, Grant.
What about the National Party? What Simon Bridges and
yeah.
What's her name?
Oh, Helen.
The one that was leader of the National Party. Why is her name gone?
Judith Collins.
Yeah, Judith.
Yeah.
Judith. She know about this?
Probably. I should send her a copy of the recording, shouldn't I? Or you should. And I'm not saying that National hasn't got, isn't implicated in, the fact that, because every Prime Minister must have known there was something very strange, or, perhaps they just think about this and that and not really about the why and the wherefore.
Well, that means that we were run by a deep state.
Yeah.
We don't know who these people are.
Mm. But there's been a Maori deep state for a very long time.
Mm.
Yeah, because they've been holding hands with the Crown, and
the Crown. What's the Crown again?
The Crown. Let's see. It's there's a constitutional lawyer called Joseph something. Joseph or something. I can't remember what his first name was. Anyway, he's very famous, and he writes textbooks about this, right? There's a whole volume.
Well, that was Liz Lambert, Liz M Lambert. She's available on Facebook if you want to message her about anything. She's a lawyer, and she has a degree in politics and a degree in law. You're listening to Liberty NZ. I'm Grant Edwards.
You want to know about the Crown? Well, Grant.
Yes, indeed.
There is a Professor Josephs who's written a whole textbook about it, and he's supposed to be the authority. When you go into the chapter about what is the Crown, you come out completely at a loss because he doesn't seem to know. And if you ask most lawyers who've done public law, they
don't like talking about it, do they?
No, they don't. And it's one of those most mysterious subjects.
Yeah.
More mysterious than most legal fictions, but you can define it by what it's not. It's not Parliament.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not the people we elect, although some of the people we elect go to the Governor-General, who is a part of the Crown, and ask her or him if they are allowed to form a government, right?
Right.
So traditionally that has been the leader of the party who's won most votes, and the people who are up on there. It didn't used to be a party list, so it must have been some sort of internal meetings that they have. There's a whole lot of conventions in Parliament and about how they choose members of the cabinet. So members of the cabinet, headed by the Prime Minister, who they've decided the leader of the party is usually the Prime Minister as well. I mean, none of these things have to happen, but these just go by, this is how we'll do it. Convention.
Yeah.
So the head of the party becomes the Prime Minister, and then they choose people out of their party to be ministers of Her Majesty's government. So we're getting to the nub of it when we start to look at the wording, because the person that you have to go to form a government is the the Queen's representative. And when you've got that permission, you form her government, okay? In this case, Queen Elizabeth's government, or his government if it happened to be a king, right? His Majesty's or Her Majesty's government, right? So the government doesn't belong to the people of New Zealand. It's not the New Zealand government. It's the government permitted to the people of New Zealand by the Queen of England or the King of England.
That's what I thought.
Right? Yeah, and the opposition is called Her Majesty's. I think, is it loyal? Yeah, it is loyal. Her Majesty's loyal opposition. So even the people who aren't called the Crown have a responsibility to the Queen of England or the King of England.
Yeah, even the opposition party have to swear an oath to go into Parliament. Yeah.
Yeah, the opposition. So you've got to have an opposition. Or, so it doesn't look like a tyranny.
Right.
But and then those. So the Queen of England controls, or the sovereign in England controls the whole show, basically, in reality, because you can't have a government. You might elect a government, but you can't. We elect people. You can elect representatives. Now, what stands out in all of this is there is the potential, of course, that we can have governance without the Crown, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't have political parties. We just have representatives, right? And because political parties then get into gangs, and the strongest gang gets to go to the Queen or the King and say, can we form a government? Mm-hmm. So you've got to get political parties out of the mix.
So the political parties, they just can manipulate the media into convincing us to vote for them.
Yes, well, I mean, when there's no Crown, when there's no Queen in England or company in this case, telling us how we should do everything and signing off the rules, by the CEO, I guess. What would you call the Governor General? She's
the CEO.
Well, it's kind of a fantasy, really,
manager.
Isn't it? It's like
shop manager.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's really weird when you think of it this way. So yes, we're quite capable, and in the letter I wrote to the Governor General on the 12th of September, the day before, she issued the writ for the election to start. I pointed out to her that we've had the wool pulled over our eyes, especially in relation to that the Queen and Right of New Zealand, the company, in that it holds securities, but securities are a name for big mortgages, if you like. So if you can securitize, it's just another word for mortgage.
Yeah.
So what
borrowed
they've
money.
done, they've mortgaged, but they've mortgaged the security for the money is actually the land of New Zealand, all the Crown land, conservation land, etc. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So what I was pointing out to the Governor General on the when I wrote to her was, this is not on. We, the people of New Zealand, have never been, because there's an Act of Parliament that is still valid, of course. 1953 was the year the Queen was coronated, Queen Elizabeth II. And they've got, it's something, I can't remember the name of it, I'd have to find it on the document I wrote to the Governor General, but it points out that we, the people, that the land, this is our sustenance, this land, and we've never been asked, can we put mortgages on this land and can we hand it over to a foreign power if we can't pay the money back? So people need not worry, though, because it's for a start, they never had obviously, since
the death of Queen Victoria.
for a long time, they have that. They haven't. They say 1986, but my investigations say that the whole thing, right from 1840, was in terms of having authority over actual land. They had none.
Oh, okay.
They had none. So
all these titles they're selling are just a what would you call those? A fiction.
They're pieces of their chattel paper is one way of describing them, because they're a form of paperwork that transfers money from one person to another, or it gives assurances that money will be paid, or there's all sorts of ways to describe them. But the land itself, they've put in real danger. They've put all of us in real danger. But I was writing as part of a claimant to a piece of land that we've taken by allodial title anyway.
Yep.
And what I was saying to the Government General was, you've built up a huge debt over this at the time of this lockdown. I don't think you're going to put any, if you've put any mortgage over that land, which it's come to my notice that they have, don't think that you're going to let anybody take it, because we never agreed to it and we never knew. And so it's fraud. They have been fraudulent. So that's what I'm saying.
All the Crown land, the people of New Zealand should take all of the Crown land in allodial title.
Yeah, and then we can assure ourselves that we know what's going on with it, because it'll be our names that are on it, not this so-called Crown, because that's whose name is on it at the moment.
So this so-called Crown, let me just get this right, because I sort of got a bit lost. So it's not a physical person. It's not the Queen. It's a company.
No.
No?
Yeah.
It is a company.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Right. And so the Governor General is the Governor General of a company.
Is even right. It's called Crown Law.
Oh, that's a company.
Yeah.
Incorporated. Crown Law.
Crown Law is the law firm for the Crown.
Okay. And
they
what about Lady Crown?
When we want to get some right heard, right, the Crown lawyers always oppose us. This is why it's so darn hard to get any justice within the public law system, because we've been arguing with a company that is not there for our benefit. It's there to make profits for its foreign owners.
Make money and trade globally, internationally.
Yeah.
So where does Lady Crown fit in all this? What about poor old Lady Crown?
Oh, I don't know. She's got the tattoos and everything.
Oh, body desecration.
I think she might still be in Australia.
Okay. Does she have a barcode on her chin as well? Like the other one? You want me to cut this out, because it does sound a bit racist, don't you think, Liz?
It does. We'll cut that bit out.
Cut that bit out. I'm becoming a racist. Never used to be.
Look, I was so, I was so not gung ho. I was never arguing for unfair causes or anything like that. But I was totally convinced, that there'd been a wrong done, and they were entitled. And
do you think there has been a wrong done?
In a lot of cases, a right has been done, and it's been overdone.
Overdone or over? Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Put right, but overdone.
When
where have you? Have you gone to the wash house or something? You're not in the bedroom anymore.
Yeah, back again.
Yeah.
I don't know
what was that? You talked about Lady Crown, and then.
But has a wrong been done?
Has a wrong been done?
I don't think so. In a lot of cases.
Hmm.
In terms of land, like we were talking about the large purchase of the New Zealand by the New Zealand company that then basically was recompensed for it by the settler government.
The Colonial Office.
Yeah, it was a settler government at that stage.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't really a settler because they hadn't brought the settlers in at that stage, but it's 1840.
Yeah. The New Zealand company was bankrupted in 1847, wasn't it?
1847, yeah. Yeah, they did do something like that. I think in what's called the New Zealand Company from COMPANY.
Well, it looked like we've lost you there, Liz. My name's Grant Edwards. You're listening to Liberty NZ on Podbean. We were discussing with Liz a document that was leaked to Liz around about the end of last year, 2020, and it was put together at Waitangi